The New York Islanders met with potential number one pick Matthew Schaefer yesterday, and they did something a little unusual. We'll talk about that and some comments made by GM Matthew Darche at the scouting combine. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. We've got a busy show today. The Islanders met with Matthew Schaefer on Monday night and Tuesday. We'll talk about that and some of the things that new GM Matthew Darche said at the scouting combine. We'll talk about a potential free agent signing that could really impact the Islanders. And we'll continue our player-by-player look at the team with Maxim Tsyplakov. We'll discuss his season and what his potential future with the team looks like. We're going to start today with the Matthew Schaefer meeting. And, you go to the scouting combine, you meet with different players, you interview different players, and it's always kind of interesting to see some of the things that players and teams do. And according to published reports, the Islanders had dinner with Schaefer on Monday evening and then had a meeting to interview him formally. Each team is allowed to interview multiple players over the course of the combine. So the Islanders meeting with Schaefer was on Tuesday. Now, according to multiple reports, on Monday, what the Islanders did was a little unusual. And look, hockey teams very often do these things at interviews. They'll ask someone an inappropriate question, or they'll put them on the spot, or do something that is not normal or typical, just to see how the player reacts. And again, Schaefer is still 17 years old. I mean, he is very, very young. And it was kind of interesting to me to hear what happened. What the Islanders did was, after having dinner with Schaefer, they made him pay the bill. They didn't offer to pay the bill. They gave it to Schaefer, and according to what I've heard, Schaefer actually paid the bill himself. Was this what the Islanders were hoping he would do? How he would handle what is clearly, a breach of etiquette under the circumstances? I also kind of wonder whether or not after the fact, when they met with him on Tuesday, did they then reimburse him for the cost of the dinner after just trying to prove their point? That information I don't have. But realistically, these are the kind of things that teams do at some of these interviews. They want to make you uncomfortable. They want to see how you react in adverse situations. And so that is what the Islanders did to 17-year-old Matthew Schaefer. Now, as far as the interview goes, kind of interesting. Schaefer's going to meet with probably almost half the teams in the league. And how players handle these interviews, what impression they make on the different teams, not just the Islanders, but all the rest of the teams, is going to be important. Again, it is more likely that there are several players ranked, and I'm not specifically talking about Schaefer here, but, many teams will have 2 or 3 players ranked very close to each other on their draft board, and how players handle their interviews and situations like what we discussed that the Islanders did with Schaefer at dinner could be a tiebreaker between one player and another player who, let's say, doesn't handle the situation as well. And, you wonder with the dinner check, does paying the check show that he's taking command of the situation in the Islanders' eyes, or does it show that he didn't speak up and say something? Which response were they looking for under the circumstances? I'm sort of curious about that. But this is one of the things that the Islanders did in their meeting with Schaefer. The other thing, though, that took place on Tuesday is that, basically speaking, we heard a little something from Islanders GM Matthew Darche. And according to, these reports from the scouting combine, it is very, very likely that the Islanders will use that first overall pick, not looking to trade it. Darche basically said, I expect to speak number one on June 27th. You've got to be open to everything, but I'd be shocked if I'm not the one speaking first. When Gary Bettman announces the first pick, I'd be shocked if it's not the New York Islanders. There are a lot of good players. We're meeting with them this week. The thing I know is I'm going to end up with a great player that hopefully plays on the island for a long time. So I'm not worried about the first pick. I think there's a lot of good players to pick from, and we'll make a decision in a few weeks. And again, you could take this in a number of different ways. You could say, number one, that he's speaking the truth, that this is what the Islanders want to do. They feel that they are best off utilizing that pick and picking the best player available, whether it's Schaefer or Misa or Hagens or somebody else, and then building around that kind of a talent. But the other alternative is that Darche is basically trying to encourage opposing teams who want to possibly trade up for that pick. He's trying to send them the message that if you want that pick, it is going to cost you a lot of money. Now, another statement from Darche. There's a lot of good players in this draft. Some names are talked about more than others, but there's other very good players. Matthew obviously is an elite defenseman. Leadership, character is impressive. He can play both sides of the ice. He's a great skater. There's a lot of good attributes there that any team would be lucky to have. We have to do our due diligence on all the players, wherever they're from, and we'll make the best choice that we feel at that moment. And again, I think it all fits into a strategy where you want the New York Islanders to take the best player available, and you send that message to the other 31 teams. If you want to trade for the pick, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you in picks or prospects or both or players. But the number one pick, we're going to use it. But if you want it, as he said at his introductory press conference, you got to knock my socks off if you want that number one pick. So look, there is always deception going on when statements are made by sports teams. It's not just in hockey. Leading up to a draft, you're always saying things because you want the result, the reaction to be a certain way. Well, it will be interesting to see whether or not anybody steps up and makes an offer, so to speak, that Matthew Darche cannot refuse. And again, the top two players in this draft, according to the consensus, for what it's worth, because the Islanders board could be completely different than the consensus. But again, it's Schaefer and Misa, 1 and 2, And then, according to most scouts, there is a drop off after that. And then you have the next batch of players, whether it's Hagens or a few other players in that next tier. But tier one is realistically, 2 players long. And then you sort of get into tier 2 and tier 3 and so on and so forth. But right now, for the New York Islanders, they got to make their pick. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. We have got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk about a free agent who, once again, is being linked to the Islanders as a possible target. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Maxim Tsyplakov's season. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a forward who was with the team for 1 year in the early 90s after being traded from the Chicago Blackhawks. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. But maybe you prefer cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch. Well, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. So the draft is, 3.5 weeks away at this point. But just after the draft, what do you got next? Free agency. And free agency is always, a little bit of a crapshoot. Everydayers, and we have discussed on numerous occasions that the New York Islanders have never signed a big ticket elite free agent. Typically speaking, what happens is, at least under Lou Lamoriello's tenure, the Islanders are supposedly interested in player X. Player X lists 5 teams that they're interested in going to. The Islanders are sometimes one of them. The Islanders sometimes even offer more money than the other team that the player ends up signing with, but they use the Islanders as leverage and end up signing with the Maple Leafs, the Rangers, the Panthers, the Golden Knights, whatever other team they end up with. We've seen it happen too many times. Will Matthew Darche be able to end this problem where the Islanders just cannot sign an elite free agent? So The Athletic came out with its list of the top 50 free agent targets. This all starts July 1st. So we are less than a month away from the start of free agency. And the top 5 players, Mitch Marner of the Leafs, still at number 1. I could tell you right now, won't be easy to get Mitch Marner here. Sam Bennett of Florida is ranked 2nd. Former Islander John Tavares ranked 3rd. I think that's a little high at his age and at this stage in his career. And I think he's going to give the Maple Leafs a hometown discount, but he's up there and I get it. Coming in at number 4, Nikolai Ehlers of Winnipeg. And at number 5, Florida defenseman Aaron Ekblad. At the end of the day, the player who the Islanders have kind of been mentioned around is Nikolai Ehlers. And Ehlers is right now 29 years old. He will basically turn 30 in February. So if you're going to sign him to that 7-year contract, which remains the maximum, you're going to have him until he's 36, 37 years old. And here's a guy who has just been rock steady whenever he's been healthy. This year, in just 69 games, so he missed 13 games, he scored 24 goals and 63 points. He had a plus 14 plus minus. He had 6 power play goals, 16 assists on the power play, and 5 of his goals were game winners. He averaged 15 minutes and 48 seconds of ice time. Ehlers, when healthy, is a guaranteed roughly 25 goal scorer. His goal totals after his rookie year, 25, 29, 21, 25, 21 in just 47 games during the COVID shortened season, 28, 12 in just 45 games, and then 25 and 24. If this kid plays, he's going to give you 25 goals, give or take, and 55 to 65 points. He is not the most physical guy in the world. He basically had 38 hits in 69 games. But here's the deal. You could totally see how a guy like Nikolai Ehlers could fit into this Islanders lineup. Put him on a line with Bo Horvat on the top line. Maybe that allows you to move Matthew Barzal back to center. He's your 2C. Ehlers goes up to the wing on the first line. Then Callum Ritchie can be your 3C. And maybe you have the flexibility to make a move involving J.G. Pageau. But realistically speaking, here's the consistent goal scorer that you're looking for. Not, going to give you 40, but with the right chemistry and the right players around him, could he give you, 25 to 30, maybe even a little more if he stays healthy? Possibly. He would be a good fit for the system that Patrick Waugh has indicated he wants to run and that Matthew Darche has said he wants to run. His contract last year was for $6 million. I would say it's going to cost probably closer to $9 million to sign him AAV. And therein lies the issue. The New York Islanders right now do not have a lot of cap space. Yeah, on paper, they've got 20 million roughly. All well and good, you got 20 million. But then you got to start subtracting because you need to re-sign Simon Holmstrom, Maxim Tsyplakov, Alexander Romanov, and Noah Dobson. When you start filling in the dollar amounts, Dobson, 9 million, maybe more. Romanov, probably 4.5 to 5 million. Holmstrom, probably 3 to 4 million. Tsyplakov, 2.5 to 3.5 million. That 20 million goes away in a hurry. And that doesn't include trying to bring back a D'Angelo or a Perunovic or signing any new players. And it leaves the New York Islanders back in the situation where, in order to bring in new talent, whether it's a free agent or trading for, and we will talk in future episodes, everydayers, about some trade rumors. We've heard a few of them, and we're going to get more information about them. You could talk about that. You want to get a really good offensive goal scorer, you got to pay the guy. The Islanders don't have the cap space to do it unless they trade away players with substantial cap hits, whether that's J.G. Pageau, Adam Pelech, Ryan Pollock, Anders Lee. You certainly want to be able to try to move on from some of the, guys with really bad contracts like you want to move on from the longer contract of Scott Mayfield or obviously Pierre Engvall. I get that. But Lou Lamoriello left this team in a situation where there's not a lot of cap space, even with the increase in the cap. And imagine if he would have re-signed Brock Nelson. That's one of the issues I had with re-signing Kyle Palmieri. Nothing against him, but that $4.5 million in cap space comes in handy if you want to try to add somebody, whether it's during this offseason or at the trade deadline. It's one of those things where the long-term future of this team is paramount. And I think one question, and we're going to discuss this in a future episode as well, but one question that this team really needs to figure out. Yeah, they say we expect to qualify or to challenge for the playoffs this year. But again, is the ceiling of this team this year, if they want to go all in for the playoffs, any higher than what it was last year or the year before or the 2 years before that? Everything works out well. You make the first round, you lose in the first round, and that's the end of it. And to make a real long playoff run, you need to pull off 4 upsets to win the Stanley Cup. It's asking a lot, and I still think this team is better served by taking 1 year to sort of feel things out, retool, take a half step or a step back to take 2 or 3 steps forward. We'll see how Matthew Darche handles it. We'll see if his talk about competing for the playoffs right away is lip service designed to encourage fans and sell tickets, or if it is what they're going to do. And hopefully if they do it in a way that gets them out of the muddy middle. We've got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk about Maxim Tsyplakov's season, his impact on the team, and what his role will be going forward. And we'll also have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders. Everydayers, yesterday we talked about Hudson Fasching. We've talked about Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, Kyle Palmieri. We've done Ilya Sorokin. We've gone through a lot of players. We're going to keep going until we manage to go through all the major players on the roster. Today, it is Maxim Tsyplakov. Tsyplakov will turn 27 in September. So he is in the prime of his career right now, even though he was an NHL rookie last year, his first season since coming over from the KHL. He played 77 games for the Islanders, 10 goals, 35 points. He was a +4, 39 penalty minutes. He basically averaged a smidge under 15 minutes per game of ice time, had 140 hits, so a little less than 2 hits a game, and blocked 40 shots. Tsyplakov showed flashes. There were also times where he struggled a little bit to adjust to the NHL game. He did have those 39 penalty minutes, and most of those were because he stopped moving his skates, stopped moving forward, and as a result, you end up in a situation where you end up taking, a trip or a hold because you are behind the other player and you need to stop him. Obviously, he had 31 goals, which placed him, third in the KHL in 2023-2024. I don't think anybody really expected that of Tsyplakov in his first year in the NHL. I would have preferred to see at least 15 goals rather than 10, but I think overall he had a straightforward, successful season as a rookie. And the key question now is, how does he go from here? Does he build on that solid but not spectacular rookie season? Does he cut down on the foolish penalties? Does he increase his goal scoring? Is he used to the narrower rink and the style of play in the NHL? Or is he somebody who is going to continue to struggle in that area? Again, he's not a kid, but I think the talent, the skills are there, and it's just a question of him being more consistent. Right now, I think he's best served in a third line role, but with a couple of tweaks and a little bit of work, I think he could become a second line player on this team. He did see some time on the power play. I would like to see him get more, mainly because when you're on the power play, there's a little more time and space to operate with. And I think that would reduce the adjustment when you have a little more room. The fact that the rink is a little less narrow matters a little bit less. Of course, it changes the angles and the way you play certain things, how you go to the net. I think he'll be fine. He'll be used to it. I think he has a great support system. You have Varlamov and Romanov and Sorokin, plenty of other Russians here to help him both culturally, language-wise, on the ice, etc. And I think there is a pretty good future for Maxim Tsyplakov, but I want to see progress from him. By the end of the season, I would love to see him on the second line and certainly being a regular on the second power play unit. I would like to see him get to the 20-goal mark this season. It would have a huge impact on an Islanders team that continues to struggle to score. We'll see if he can get it done. But again, a restricted free agent. We'll see what Matthew Darche decides to do and how much money that Tsyplakov ultimately ends up signing for. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and Monday was the 60th birthday of former Islanders forward Adam Creighton, the Burlington, Ontario native, a first-round pick of the Sabres back in 1983 with the 11th overall pick. Made his NHL debut for Buffalo in 84-85, then went on to Chicago, joined the Islanders early in the 91-92 season, and then was on to Tampa Bay for 92-93. Had 15 goals and 24 points in 66 games for the Isles. Also had 102 penalty minutes that year after Tampa Bay. Played for the Blues, had a second stint with the Blackhawks, and then finished his career in Germany, ending it after the 98-99 season. Creighton played in 708 NHL games, had 187 goals, 403 points, and 1,077 penalty minutes. Add 11 goals, 25 points in 61 playoff games, none of those as an Islander. One of his better games with the Isles, well, how about January 14th, 1992, Islanders hosting the Red Wings at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Tim Cheveldae, the goalie for Detroit, Mark Fitzpatrick in between the pipes for the Islanders. And our Islanders birthday of the day, Adam Creighton, gets the scoring started 4 minutes and 22 seconds into the game. Hubie McDonough and Tom Curvers with the assist. It's 1-0 Islanders. But with the Islanders up 5-2, Creighton strikes again late in the game to clinch it. Hubie McDonough and Tom Fitzgerald assist this time. The Islanders go on to win this one by a score of 6-2. Adam Creighton, 2 goals. He was a +3. He scored on both of his shots, both goals coming at even strength. This was a great game for Hubie McDonough, 2 goals, 2 assists, and Mark Fitzpatrick made 21 saves. So Adam Creighton, a 6'5", 210-pound forward, a big guy. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this important offseason. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We'll have more news from the scouting combine, and we will discuss Noah Dobson as we continue our player-by-player look at this team. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.